So here we go. We're going to do the solutions for this quiz. So first it asks us to explain two situations in which you must use the cosine law to start solving a triangle. You may want to include a diagram. So remember when we must use a cosine law, right? The sine law is nice, right? Because the sine law has a relationship between the opposite side and the angle, right? So we use the cosine law, not in that case, but when we don't have a relationship between a side and an angle. So for example, if I knew that this was something, and this was, say, 12, and this was 13, and I wanted to know that, right? See how here I don't have a complete ratio. So here I don't have a complete side and an angle. Here I don't have a complete side and angle, and here I don't have a complete side and angle. So that's a good place to use the cosine law. And then the other case was, for example, if I knew 12, 13, 14, and I wanted to know that angle, right? Again, because I don't have a complete side and angle, don't have the complete, right? So these two are the cases where we really need to use the cosine law, okay? All right, so now that I got you thinking about that, we want to solve this triangle, right? And you can see that we can use the cosine law, right? And that we need to use the cosine law, right? To solve a triangle means to find all the missing sides and angles. So let's start with this missing side right here, right? So there's capital A, little a. Okay, I can't use the sine law because I don't have a pair here or there, so I can use the cosine law to start. Okay, so remember the cosine law says a squared is equal to b squared plus c squared minus 2bc cos a, right? Because that angle matches that side. So now we just have to fill in everything. So in this case, b is 5, c is 4, and then 2bc cos a is 77. Okay, so now all I want to do is on my calculator, I'm going to enter that all at once. Okay, so let's see where that gets me. So 5 squared plus 4 squared minus 2 times 5 times 4 times cos 77. And I get the answer 29.75. And since we're dealing with side lengths, we said 2 decimal places for side lengths, right? So that means a squared is that, which means a is the square root of 29.75, which means, so if I do the square root of 29.75, we get the answer 5.45. Okay, so we figured out that side, right? Now to completely solve a triangle, I need to figure out all the missing angles as well. So now let's go to angle B. For example, we could also go to angle C. I picked B just because it's right there, that's all. Okay, so now I'm looking for an angle. I have a ratio now because I know that this is 5.45. So now I can use the sine law. And in fact, since I'm looking for an angle, I can use the sine law with the angle on top. So sine B over B is equal to sine A over A. Right? Then I want to isolate this, so that means I want to get rid of that 5, so multiply by 5 on both sides. And we get sine B is 5 times sine 77 divided by 5.45. Now I can do that on my calculator. So 5 times sine 77 divided by 5.45. And I get this answer, okay? And in fact, remember when we're writing down our ratios, I can write down the ratio to 4 decimal places, so 8939. So that means sine B is 0.8939, and that means that B is equal to sine inverse 0.8939, right? Remember, when we know the ratio, we need to do sine inverse to find out the angle, right? So that means I'll do second sine inverse, and then 0.8939, and that answer is 63.37. And then remember, we always round angles to the nearest whole number, so we rounded at 63 degrees. Okay, and now for angle C. Well, angle C, I already know this angle. I already know that this is 63. So angle C is really about us remembering that they all add up to 180. So I can do 180 minus 77 minus 63, which is 40 degrees, right? So there's my answers. So I've figured out C, I've figured out B, I've figured out A, and I knew A, B, and C there. So everything's done. Okay, so what about solving this triangle? Well, in this one, we can start differently because I already know a ratio, right? So right away, I know a ratio, which means that I can set up, and now I'm looking for angle C, right? Because I have the opposite side. So that means I can set up sine C over 5 is equal to sine 107 over 9. Okay, so again, multiply by 5, I get sine C is equal to 5 times sine 107 over 9. Do that on my calculator. So 5 times sine 107 over 9, and I get 0.5313. So 0.5313. All right, and now we know that C is sine inverse of that. So I can do sine inverse 0.5313, and we get 32 degrees. So C is 32 degrees. All right. Okay. So where can we go next? Well, now I know two angles. So if I know two angles, it's easy to figure out the third one. It's 180 minus 107 minus 32, which is 41 degrees. Okay? So that means that A is 41 degrees. So now what's left? Well, side A is left, right? So now I know the opposite angle, so I can set up A over sine A is equal to, and I can pick any of the other ratios because I know all of them. So I'll pick 9 over sine 107. So now I cross multiply there, and I get A is 9 times sine 41 over sine 107. So we do that on our calculator. 9 times sine 41 divided by sine 107. And our answer is 6.17 to 2 decimal places. And since the units are meters, this would be meters. All right, so the triangle is solved. Okay? All right. So in this one, a little bit more challenging. Determine the length of segment AE. So first, let's look for AE. So here's AE. Okay, I'll call AE X. Okay? Now, I need to use my understanding of all of the things that we've done to know what I need to figure out. So here, okay, the easiest way to go is look at this right angle triangle and realize that this is the hypotenuse, right? And it depends which angle I'm talking about, but I also have one other side. Now, I don't know this angle, and I don't know this angle, okay? So since I don't know this angle and I don't know this angle, what can I do? Well, I need to find one of them out, okay? This angle right here, right? I don't know that angle, but I can figure it out because this is an isosceles triangle, okay? In an isosceles triangle, these two sides are the same, but also these two angles are the same. So this would have to be 66 degrees, right? Because these two are the same in isosceles triangle. So now if I know that this is 66 and this is 66, well, this one here would have to be 180 minus 66 minus 66. Okay, so on our calculator, 180 minus 66 minus 66 is 48 degrees. Okay, so that is 48 degrees. Okay, so why does that help us? Well, if we go back to what we're looking for, I'm looking for this side right here. Well, I know this side. I don't know this angle. I don't know that angle. But if I could find out this side, then I could just use Pythagorean theorem to find out that. Okay? So now, since I know that's 48, I know that's 7, I can use my cosine law to find this. So I'll call this side C, because that's opposite of C. So I can write C squared is A squared plus B squared minus 2AB cos C. Right? So let's go through this. So that would be 7 squared plus 7 squared minus 2 times 7 times cos 48. And that's 32.42. So C squared is 32.43 actually. Okay? So that means C is the square root of 32.43, which is 5.69. Right? So C is 5.69, which means this is 5.69. Now to find x, well, I have this side, I have this side, I have a right angle, I can use my Pythagorean theorem. So that means x squared is equal to 4 squared plus 5.69 squared. So that's equal to 4 squared plus 5.69 squared. So that's x squared, and that means x is going to be the square root of that, which is the square root of the answer, so 6.96. And these are kilometers, so this would be kilometers. Okay? Now, a lot of you might ask, why could we not just assume that this is a right angle triangle? And the answer is because this square wasn't in the diagram. If the square is not in the diagram, don't assume it's a right angle. Okay? All right. So let's look at the application questions. A communication satellite in the sky is between two receiving towers. So here is the communication satellite, and here is tower A, and here's tower B. Okay? The angle of elevation to the satellite from one tower, so the angle of elevation, remember that's how far do you have to look up? So that's 78 degrees. And for the other tower is 84 degrees. So that means 84 degrees. The towers are 2,140 meters apart. How far is the communication satellite from each tower? So that means we're trying to figure out this distance from tower B and this distance from tower A. All right. Okay, so what are we going to use? Well, first of all, we know that if I know two angles, I also know the third angle. So that's going to be 180 minus 84 minus 78. So that is 180 minus 84 minus 78, 18 degrees. Right? And now, since I have this ratio, I can go ahead and use the sine law. Right? So that means I can write out I'm looking for sides. So I can write out A over sine A is equal to B over sine B is equal to C over sine C. So that's 2140 over sine 18. Okay? So I'm going to let you work out the rest of the math, but with that setup, it should be okay. All right? So let's look at the last one. The course at a motocross competition is triangular. So here is the course. The first two legs are 147 meters and 213 meters, and they join at an angle of 84 degrees. Find the length of the third leg and the angles of the other two runs. So let's call this A, B, C. That means this is little b, this is little a, this is little c. So what information do we have? Well, I don't have a ratio. That's the main thing that you need to recognize. This one part's missing, here the angle is missing, and the angle is missing. So that means I need to use the cosine law. So I'm going to write out b squared is equal to a squared plus c squared minus 2ac cos b. Okay, so again, now that you have that information, I'm going to let you do the rest. But that's it. So that's the quiz. And I hope that will help you prepare for your test, because now you should know what you need to study. All right.